How do I navigate the various dynamics that may arise in a relationship? Okay, I guess I'm gonna leave it at this. Everybody, I said this previously on a previous live stream. Everybody knows that I love anime. It's a great genre. I love it, and the storytelling is amazing. My favorite anime is Full Metal Alchemist, and in the very beginning of every episode, Alphonse Elric spits the law of equivalent exchange, which states that humankind cannot gain anything without first sacrificing something in return. To obtain anything, something of equal value must be lost. So, I guess the best way to navigate the dynamics in the relationship would be to recognize what you want and recognize what you're willing to give up in exchange for it, because the relationship is not about just you. It's about the union. So you have to figure out what you can bring to the union so that way the union is better and not just you individually. And I'll just leave it at that.
All right, folks. So tonight's conversation, to me, I was listening a lot more, and most of what was discussed centered on decentralized leadership and just knowing when to lead and when to follow. Again, being able to avoid being defensive. Listening to comprehend and apply what you're learning, and do it incrementally, because you can set a goal that's too lofty based on capability, and you might miss that mark. So make sure you're being reasonable about improving and creating reasonable expectations to change your behavior overall. And I think for the most part, tonight I added a few more words to understand the dynamics of our relationship and involving with tech and everything else. You got to have some creativity, some versatility, and some things you're going to have to be inflexible on, just like when Coach brought up about the basketball goal being in the street, or Antoine being willing to make a decision and put his foot down regardless of, who agrees with what. You got to have a routine, because that's how your routine allows your individuality to maintain healthy boundaries. So when you come in, some things don't have to be discussed. And, that goes with reading the room and maintaining some situational awareness about what you bring to the environment as well as your mate. If you do not have any situational awareness about your relationship, about your mate, you're going to find yourself always being either in the way or either getting run over to some degree. There's going to always be a conflict. But the most important thing is that you're there for the other person. You take care of the other person should pay you back in care and comfort.
Okay, so my final thoughts. Let's see. I'd like to say I don't believe in sacrificing your goals for anybody, ever, right? I believe that person had a life before you, they'll have a life after you. You should not ask that person to make a sacrifice in their life because they're coming together with you. You ain't nothing special, right? But what you do is you compromise in a healthy relationship to build a healthy relationship, whereas you give and take in certain areas to build a relationship. Find out what it is your partner likes. Find out who your partner is. Find out if they're on the same, all these communication points, find out, right? Don't have somebody move in without knowing how they are and how they live. You find out, you vet them. So if you're in a relationship, there's no surprises. The boundaries are set. The wording is set. How you speak to one another is understood. You know the person's do's and don'ts, likes, dislikes. So you have that all out of the way and you make it simple. So the decisions that you make together, and you make a nice, clear understanding on how things are going to be, right? And at the end of the day, the man leads. He's going to make his final decision. But if he leads and he makes the wrong decision, he's got to own it, all right? He made a bad call and he's got to own it. And I think that's where it's very clear. You made that mistake, you made that decision, and you were wrong. Put your ego aside and swallow it. But going forward, you come together in the relationship. But that person should not sacrifice who they are to be with you, and vice versa. The relationship is where it matters. The kids is where it matters. It's about them. It's about legacy. It's about what you're building together, where you see yourself down the road, where you want to be. And if you want that kind of life, there's a sacrifice you have to make to get it. I mean, I can't stress this enough. I don't care how much she loves you. That ain't going to pay your bills. And yes, it matters, because nobody's going to be homeless on the street for one another. You can't do no good if you can't help yourself. You can't be no good to anybody else if you can't help yourself first. That's why when you're flying in an airplane, they say put your mask on first before you help the person next to you. There's a reason for that. And I think people lose the sight of that simplicity. But if you keep it simple, everything will happen right. And talk. Here you go.
Hey, I'm pretty much going to sound like a broken record. I've said it already. The most important thing that you can do in a relationship is make sure that you have the necessary conversations in the beginning before the relationship gets started. It is important for you to be equally yoked with your partner. You also need to understand, or how do they view relationship? Those are some of the things that's important to understand. Don't get into a relationship based upon superficial concepts, because those superficial concepts will always lead to a demise of a relationship over the long run. I can't get involved with somebody just simply because they look good, they smell good, or they're 6'4", dark skinned, bald head with a six pack. That stuff goes away, right? Get after the heart of the person. Understand who the person is, what their core values are. Do your core values line up? What's important to them? How they treat their, the individuals in their family, that might matter as well. Like, how do they handle some of their relationships? That's also an indicator. Again, when the dynamics of a relationship show up, it should not change who you are. Who you are has already been codified. Everybody is on a journey to become consciously aware of who they are. So I love it when I hear people say that, well, this shouldn't change you. You don't even know who you are completely yet. So you're going to change as you become more aware of who you are. So what we have to do in the space of relationship is understand that relationship is a training ground, and it makes room for us to change. And I think it was Vic who mentioned it as well. In the relationship is probably one of the most influential spaces to where we can champion the professional and personal development of each other. I should be her biggest fan. She should be my biggest fan. We should push each other outside of our comfort zone into a space where we realize another version of ourselves. That's what relationship is all about. So when we view our growth as happening outside of the relationship, then that really kind of helps us to understand how we view relationships. So when it comes down to it, again, have that conversation in the beginning, understand what's compromisable and what's not compromisable, and then remember, in the space of disagreement, the relationship is always most important, and let what's right and what's wrong be understood, and don't fight for who's right and who's wrong. Get the ego out the way, and that's about it.
See, Coach just hit a home run, so all I got to do is get a bunt. Man, how do I navigate? I think stay focused on the relationship as well as your partner. Listen to what is said and what's not being said, because what's not being said is just as important. And keep your emotions at bay. Highlight their strengths and not just their weaknesses. Don't make them feel bad about not being super in certain areas and subpar in others. Always be willing to teach, always be willing to listen, always be willing to elevate, so that you can continue to strengthen the relationship. And always remember, the most important thing about the team is the team, and we win together. That's all I got.
How do I navigate the various dynamics that may arise in a relationship? I look at it like this. So the word in this is navigate. That's one of the words. So just like we may be taking a trip from point A to point B, it's safe, and we're taking a trip from Virginia to California. There are going to be a lot of different things that's going to go on during that trip, just like a relationship. There are going to be road closing, there's going to be construction, there's going to be a lot of different things, detours that's going to happen on a road trip, just like in a relationship. And when those things do happen, you have to be willing to make adjustments, make corrections to the relationship, and get back on the path. Get back to the goal of the relationship, and then continue on from there. So that's my final thought.